Hello and welcome to Commodity Champions. I'm Manisha Gupta, and the big fat Indian weddings are back. A market that is worth $50 billion came to a complete standstill in the last 2 years due to COVID-19 restrictions. But the sector is hoping that this wedding season will bring back its shine. For the wedding season that starts from November, goes on to February, the sector is expecting 3.2 million weddings in the country versus about 2.5 million in the previous year. With the wedding season returning in full force, hotel bookings, wedding planners, jewelry industry, food and sweet segment are back in demand. Funds and petal venues and weddings are expecting 100% growth for the sector this year. To get a sense of how this wedding season will pan out, I am now joined by Vikas Gudkutia, who is founder and managing director for Funds and Petals. Vikas, hi, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody keeps talking about this big fat wedding season back in the Indian markets. What is your sense on an year-on-year comparison, and what are you anticipating this season?
I think it's not only back, it's back with a bang. I mean, where we can see the smile and happiness all around. I think this is one industry which affects almost everybody from so there is celebration, there is happiness. And I think the big fat Indian wedding, which are deprived of good times, will probably have maybe larger than pre-pandemic times. Because of everybody has been kind of locked in their houses and situation. So I think it's time to just open up and then everybody ready to sprint.
Clearly. So Vikas, what is the kind of spend that we're looking at? I mean, how do you categorize that? What are people spending? What geographies do you see the maximum spend coming in from?
See, Northern India has always been, the leader in terms of spending and doing those large weddings. And I guess the concept and the area remains the same. But yes, there is one significant change which is emerged this year, is that post-pandemic, the number of guests being invited for each function has definitely gone down because people have become more selective, more choosy, and they want only relevant people to come and be there in their functions and celebration. So that's one major shift. But yes, in terms of number of wedding, in terms of people opting for non-Saya dates, they probably, the new millennium, the kids don't even, believe in so much of tradition and Saya dates. So I think number of wedding dates are going to get more, and so are the weddings.
Okay. Because the two things that you deal with, one is flowers and gifting, and the other is venues as well, where you have gotten into and you've seen good numbers there as well. I want to start with flowers first. And what is the overall average per annum market, and how much do weddings account for it?
I think wedding is the time the flowers, the demand supply by flowers hit the roof.
Okay.
And if you ask me on an annual basis, I think wedding probably, consumes 2/3 of the total flower consumption in the country.
And is there a choice really? And what is the kind of spend that you see on flowers too?
I think flowers technically in the last few years have become more expensive. If you look at the flowers per stem wise, fresh flower cultivation to the retail price to the demand supply situation, flower is becoming more and more expensive proposition. So a lot of people have started mixing artificial flowers with fresh flowers, which can be retained for many more functions. So there's definitely a shift in design, shift in reduction of fresh flowers being used and artificial taking over, because the price of fresh flower is becoming, and with this inflation and everything all around, it's becoming unbearable.
Because is there a number that you can put out on what is the kind of price growth or price increase that we've seen in flowers over the years?
I think if I compare to a pre-wedding year, which is 2019 to now, I can definitely see a 100% jump.
All right, that's a 100% jump in flower prices in the last 3 years. Because also, when it comes to venues, what has been your sense into weddings in India? We do understand that it is largely still unorganized. Well, yes, there are wedding planners now who give you everything, whether it's about catering, decoration, and cutlery and food, everything put in together. But what is the market share of organized wedding vis-a-vis unorganized?
I think largely weddings are still unorganized. Wedding planning and planned wedding is to the HNIs and the super rich people, the middle class and the average spending people still do the wedding the old way. So to me, if you look at the numbers, it's maybe just 10% weddings which are organized or maybe, looked after by a professional. Otherwise, everything is still unorganized.
And as Ferns and Petals have gotten into organization of weddings, venues as one part of it, what has been your experience? What is the kind of spend that you're looking at? How many weddings to begin with have we seen on a year-on-year basis?
I think, on average, a good venue can hold anywhere between 60, 65, 70 to 100 functions in a year. It includes wedding functions or pre- and post-wedding functions. So we have 11 wedding venues, and we should be doing close to 1,000 weddings this year.
Okay. Vikas, also, I want to come on to the spend part yet again. Since you said you have so many venues and 1,000 weddings is what you're doing within this season as well, what is an average spend that you're looking at per wedding? An average number?
I think average spend ultimately goes, is between 5 to 10,000 per head.
Okay, and if you're looking at maybe 100 or 200, 500 people, depending on how the wedding is, what is an average then total?
I think average total will go if you put entertainment, food, your venue, and everything put together for 200 people wedding, maybe 5 to 7,000, 10 to 15 lakhs.
Okay. When you look at the weddings in India, we do understand that there are weddings which are 10 lakhs and 50 lakhs and 2 crores and 10 crores as well. How are you looking at what weddings fall into major bracket when you look at the season?
You see, all kinds of wedding happen, and I think destination wedding is definitely the flavor of the day. So, lot of people are believing in shifting to a hotel and doing a wedding and going back home. So we see a large reduction in the number of weddings which used to take place sitting at home and going for a function in the evening. So the bride and the groom side, depending on their budget and the number of people they want to kind of invite, they shift to a location which can be in a hotel in Delhi or maybe to a place like Agra or Jaipur, and maybe some people go to Europe and maybe other exotic destination places. So destination wedding is definitely the flavor of the season, and I think it's ease of holding a wedding now. So you are comfortable, you are within a campus, you don't have to do a running around, everybody's together. So I think destination wedding is something which is the biggest chunk of good big weddings are fall into.
All right. Because I have one final question. And, we do understand that weddings in India is perhaps the 4th largest industry when you look at that. And so many people, so many sectors, so many industries come together for this. So what category do you see doing the best? Is it venues? Is it gifting? Is it jewelry? Is it, is it food rather than?
I think all have their own, own part to play in the whole wedding scenario. And I guess if you say India is, wedding is the 4th largest revenue churner, then what I think is to get the whole thing organized, it's time that we have a wedding ministry by the government of India, which will probably help everybody and things will go to the next level.
All right, that's one thing to look at then. Vikas, thank you so much for joining us. And as you said, it's a busy time of the year. Weddings have started from the month of November, go on until February. And as per the estimates, there are going to be 3.2 million weddings within this period itself. Thank you so much, Vikas, for joining us. And with that, let's go for a short break. But on the other side, we focus on the jewelry and the food sectors that are expecting a recovery as well. So how is this wedding season looking for these commodities? We'll find out after this short break. Welcome back. And with weddings returning to their full glory, demand for commodities such as jewelry, sugar, edible oil, food grains, everything is picking up. The jewelry sector is expecting to see 10 to 12% higher demand as compared to pre-COVID levels. India being the 2nd largest consumer of gold, World Gold Council says that 50% of demand comes from weddings for jewelry. And that's not the only commodity being boosted in demand. India's sugar market is estimating a record 27.5 million tons of demand in this year, with chocolate, sweets and cakes driving driving growth. Edible oil imports also have risen during this wedding season. So is the wedding season a year of recovery? To answer this, I am now joined by Surendra Mehta. He is director at India Bullion and Jewellers Association, and Atul Chaturvedi is executive chairman at Sri Renuka Sugars. Gentlemen, hi, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to start with jewelry first, Mr. Mehta. And this is an area where we saw very strong demand in the previous wedding season as well. But now, since the weddings are getting bigger and the number is much higher, what are the estimates that you're putting out?
Well, as rightly pointed out by World Gold Council, from the pre-COVID level, we are expecting at least 12 to 14% rise. See, in India, the wedding happens mostly in two seasons. First is between November to February. The weddings in this seasons are less, almost half of the wedding which happens during the month of April to first week of July. So between April to July, we'll see almost double the number. So in all, we have about 1 crore wedding. We have at least 50% of the jewelry demand coming from weddings only. See, this year has been phenomenal year for the jewelers. Consumers are coming out, buying jewelry. What we are seeing is that normally we have seen the lightweight jewelries are in demand, but now we are seeing even the heavyweight jewelries are in demand. And as pointed out by my earlier colleague, Mr. Vikas, the number of guests have reduced, and people have started spending more money on jewelry than on inviting guests. So that is probably the major shift we are seeing. And after COVID, everybody has started realizing the importance of jewelry, the importance of gold, importance of yellow metal, and that is how the demand is rising. And I expect a huge demand. Probably it may exceed the 14% expectation of IBJ and 12% expectation of World Gold Council.
All right. And as Vikas was pointing out, Mr. Mehta, that the major spend still continues to be from North India. So is that the trend that we're seeing for jewelry as well?
No, as far as jewelry is concerned, the major trend is always from the South India. Okay. If you look at the weddings in South India, you will probably realize that women wear a lot of jewelry. I don't know how do they even carry. Being a man, I'm not able to understand. But there is a passion for jewelry in South India. Even a small child, you will find a small female girl, you will find wearing a bangles and a chain, and there is some ring, some nose pin. So it's a passion, and the women love jewelry, but more jewelry is worn and purchased in South India. Almost 60 to 65% of the wedding jewelry is purchased in South India, and balance in rest of the India. Of course, the North India comes at number 2, and then Western India, and then Eastern.
Yeah, never underestimate on what women can do when they want to wear all of that jewelry. So yes, there's no logic to that really. But let's talk about food, and Mr. Chaturvedi, lesser people being invited, but that is not really, underestimating the fact that we are eating a lot of food, the kind of imports that are being done, the kind of buying that we have seen coming for food, sugar and edible oil both. What are the trends that you're looking at?
First and foremost, let me congratulate you for touching on a very important subject. In fact, not many channels are talking about the demand as far as marriage is concerned. In fact, you rightly pointed out that demand for commodities, whether it's edible oil or sugar, has been on the upside ever since we had Corona going into the pages of history. So in fact, Diwali was the time when we really saw demand picking up big time. And now with the wedding season on, we see the demand is rising exponentially. In fact, I would not be too surprised if during these months, the demand has actually gone up by about anything between 15 to 20%, both for edible oils and sugar as well. And this is largely because weddings are being celebrated with vengeance. In fact, last couple of years, people have been bottled up in their homes, and they are now doing it with vengeance. As a matter of fact, even today, I am attending a big fat wedding of a colleague's daughter in Ahmedabad. So weddings are really picking up on consumption. That's a fact.
Oh, well, yes, Mr. Trivedi, even if you're not wearing jewelry, even if you haven't bought new clothes, you definitely are eating, right? I mean, that is what we dress up for, to gorge on all of those goodies there. So is price really a matter? When you look at many of these edible food items, how have the prices been last wedding season to this wedding season?
Well, in fact, if you look at the edible oil scenario, in fact, the worst as far as the edible oil price is concerned is probably behind us. In the last maybe about, say, by June, July, we've seen markets going through the roof. But now probably the worst is behind us, and the markets have also corrected big time. And consumers are also appreciating the fact, and demand is picking up in the real sense of the term. Same goes for sugar as well. Sugar internationally is moving northward big time. But as far as India is concerned, I think the government has done a smart job of limiting the export number, which has kept the domestic values very much in check. So government has actually, what they've done is they've released only 6 million tons as an export quota, which has ensured that the domestic values of sugar remain relatively in check. In fact, these are very, very sweet times for the consumers, whether it's edible oil or whether it's sugar. And all this is getting reflected in the demand picking up. Sugar also, we are now penciling in an increase of almost something like 500,000 tons of sugar on an annualized basis, taking the figure to about closer to 27.5 million tons. Similarly, in edible oil also on an annualized basis, now we are penciling in an increase of about 5% on an annual basis. And the icing on the cake is that both sugar crop in the country is also very good. And the domestic edible oilseeds crop like soya and cotton, that is also very good. So everyone is now contributing towards the improved atmosphere in the country as far as consumption is concerned.
Clearly. Mr. Chaturvedi, we do understand that when it comes to winters and, the wedding season, the festival season, and then the New Year holidays, etc., the food demand does increase there. But as compared to the last year as well, so when you look at the edible oil imports, what is your sense? Is it more cyclical, or do you see the demand actually catching up, not just as compared to previous year, but pre-COVID years as well?
No, but compared to the pre-COVID years, I think we are now slightly above the pre-COVID years,
okay,
or maybe just about that. In fact, if you compare the numbers of this year compared to last year, in fact, our imports, which is a barometer of the demand, are higher by about closer to about 11%. In fact, we were importing around 10 to 11 lakh tons till about 3-4 months back. And now we are importing close to about 13.5 lakh tons on a monthly basis. So that is also reflecting that the demand has picked up. And similarly, sugar also, our consumption and the sugar is getting picked up like nobody's business. So inventory levels in the factories have come down drastically.
All right. So inventories are depleting. The demand is clearly going higher. And Mr. Mehta, even if we are not buying jewelry, we definitely are eating a lot attending those weddings, isn't it? Cakes, sweets, chocolates, mithais, you bring it us on. The shadi season is on here. But Mr. Mehta, also, every wedding season has its own flavor when it comes to jewelry buying as well. Sometimes it's kundan and polki and solid gold and diamonds. And there's just so much that is happening at all times. And I do understand that jewelers are really prepared this time around to cater to this kind of a demand. So what are the trends that we are seeing? What is the average ticket size spend that you're looking at as an industry this time around?
The average ticket size would still be around 75,000 to a lakh of rupees.
Okay.
But specifically this year, what we are seeing is that heavy bridal sets beyond 100 grams, 150 grams, right up to 250 grams are very much in demand. And I think this is all happening because a lot of gifting is taking place. It is not only the bride buying jewelry, but their relatives, the people who are attending marriages, they are buying jewelry. So if you ask me, across the sectors, the average buying must be coming about 70,000 to a lakh of rupees.
All right. We speak about gold all the time, but I do understand that when it comes to wedding gifting, silver also plays a very important part here. And we've seen record silver imports into the country this year around. What is your sense on the kind of demand that we are seeing? And is that demand also rising with the wedding season on?
Silver is normally gifted specifically in Maharashtra and some parts of northern India. But I do not see basically that silver really matters as far as the number of weddings are concerned. Silver is people keep buying silver on the estimates purely as an investment for the investment purpose. I think it has very little to do with the wedding demand. But if you ask me, diamonds, yes, people do spend a lot of money on diamonds.
Well, yes, record weddings and a lot of spend is what we've seen in the markets there. So whether it's about spending on organized wedding, destination weddings, jewelry, food, sugar, everything really seems to be surging up. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us and really opening up on what really can be expected in these commodities in the days to come. But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Commodity Champions. Thank you so much for watching.